AI and automation. What's not to love? Well, the good news is that HighLevel has introduced a whole lot more AI within the platform. This was a huge amount of the releases that came out of this year's Level Up event. One of the first ones that I would like to dive into is how AI is changing how we interact with workflows. So today I'm going to cover the good, the great, and even some of the bugs that I found. You see, the reality is 9 times out of 10, when somebody contacts me for help inside of HighLevel, it has something to do with the automations and the workflows. Either it's how in the heck do I build these, or how do I fix them, or just how do they work in general? Because if you're just getting started, they can certainly seem overwhelming. Or if you're getting into the more advanced features, you could have some questions about how to make things interact and how to make things work. And then you have the added fact that HighLevel just created the advanced workflow builder, which I did a whole nother video on. I'm not going to dive too deep into the different types of workflow builders today, but instead, I really want to take a look at how we can just use AI to build these, and does it work? Is this actually going to translate our thoughts into working workflows? And how much do we need to worry about our prompts, as well as editing and fixing things after the fact? So let's dive in and take a look at AI within the HighLevel workflows. Here we are inside of HighLevel, or better yet, our version called Marketecs Engine. You can see over on the left-hand panel, I am in automations. And within automations, we come into workflows. And a lot of times you'll hear me talk about these interchangeably, whether I say workflow or whether I say automation, and this is why. Within automations, really all we have is workflows. So these are technically workflows, and we're talking about creating workflows, and we're talking about using AI. Now, to get to the AI builder, there are at least 3 different ways that I found. One, you have this handy little button right here, build using AI. Clearly, they want us to try this. Number 2, you actually have, instead of start from scratch, which is typically what I do, build using AI. Now, you'll notice if I click on this button, this handy little box pops up. We even have a couple of preformed templates, and you can click these options more than once. So lead nurturing, you can see here, it gives you an example. You can actually hit start if that sounds like a good example to you. If you click the button again, it gives you another example. And what I was finding is that each one of these had about 2 pre-built examples already set up that you would just switch between if you click these buttons. And so there's a couple there that you can just practice with, and there is a couple more if you hit more. Again, what I saw was about 2 per category. I'm going to close out of that box. And then if I go to create workflow, now for some reason, my button is not allowing me to click at the moment. All right. Now it is. If that continued to happen, if for some reason by clicking this button first, I just couldn't click this one anymore, my go-to is to refresh my screen in HighLevel whenever something feels like it's just not working. I was able to get to the create workflow. If I click build using AI, you'll notice the same box pops up. So this build using AI and the one under create workflow are exactly the same actions. In this case, the first thing that comes up is when a contact replies, stop or unsubscribe and mark them do not disturb. That sounds like a great one to start with. So if you don't already have a DND or do not describe workflow, which you should, then let's use AI to build it instead of starting from scratch and doing our own thing. The first thing it's going to do is it's actually going to open the standard workflow builder. And it does start in standard. This is where it generates, AI generates the workflows, typically in standard, unless you open the workflow builder, switch to advanced, and then open the AI. And then from here, you're going to see that it's going to think for a little while. What I'm finding is this does take a little bit longer than, say, a ChatGPT conversation. It does think for a little bit longer than that. It was thinking for right around 10 seconds minimum on each build, could be up to a minute. At any point, I can stop generating. The other thing it does here is while it's building, it gives you little examples of how to build better in the future as far as prompting. So instead of just saying follow up in 3 days, and those examples start showing up there. So it is trying to educate us while we're waiting. Now, here we have, basically, you have the original prompt. It shows you what that was. And I did, again, use just one of theirs. Then it shows you a summary of what it does. It describes the actions, the triggers, and what it put it in there. So if you are new to workflows, this might really help you to understand exactly what AI did to create what we see here on the right. And I'm just going to drag this down so I can see the top. And up at the top here, we're seeing customer replied. So this is the trigger that AI chose to start this workflow with. Customer replied with stop or unsubscribed, and it's an exact phrase match of those two words. So that's all it's saying. In this case, it could be replied on any channel, really. Now, we could add additional filters like the reply channel, like a specific reply channel, whether it be the chat widget or email and SMS should be in here as well, which is typically where you would see this would be on SMS, although you would see unsubscribed on email as well. So you could say on anything, if they reply, stop or unsubscribe, and that is a good way to set that up. So I like that trigger. We'll keep it exactly how AI did it. If they replied, stop or unsubscribe, we have a condition here versus nothing. Interesting. All right. So if there's nothing, they're going to go to the none workflow. Now, if this was triggered by someone replying stop or unsubscribe, I'm not sure we actually need this condition to check for those words, but I guess it doesn't hurt. So now it actually is checking, and if they did reply with those words, it is enabling do not disturb for all channels. Like I said, up at the top, we did not specify which channel, so it is doing this for all channels. That is certainly an option. That is certainly a way to do that. And then it is removing, in this case, it's removing people from all workflows, which it chose to do through a custom code action. I find that rather interesting. If you have a little bit of experience in building workflows, then you would know that there is another option. I'm going to add an action, remove from workflow, all workflows. It's actually a very simple action that we can add. So this custom coded action feels overkill to me. So this is an example of, yes, this could potentially work. I would always test it. And if you don't really know how to build workflows, this is an option. But I can see a couple of ways already to improve this if you do know what you're doing. It's a great starting point. It just saved me probably at least 5 to 10 minutes worth of time. I still have to kind of look through it, make sure it looks good. In this case, I am going to change that remove option. I'm going to get rid of their custom code one and just have remove from workflows. Like I said, I'm not sure I would even have this check for stop or reply, but I guess it's sort of a double check. It doesn't hurt anything to have that in there. And I might actually split this up and have multiple channels that then stopped on the specific channel that somebody was requesting to stop on. That might be a way I would improve this workflow. But all in all, this is sort of a safety net. If somebody says stop or unsubscribe, they're going to D&D from everything and remove from all workflows. You won't get in trouble with this, that's for sure. So this was an unsubscribe workflow number 1 version. So I'm just going to name it as such, and then I'm going to go ahead and save. All right, now I'm going to copy my prompt, and just for the sake of scientific experiment and testing, I'm going to come back out. I am going to create a new workflow from scratch this time. I am going to switch to the advanced builder. Now I'm going to open the AI panel. And here you can say build a workflow. I don't have all the exact options that I had, like the quick little boxes that you saw on the other ones. However, you can keep clicking this build a workflow and it will go through what looks like very similar options when I'm looking at this. But what I actually want to do is put in the exact same prompt in the advanced builder and see what it does this time. Now, when you're in the advanced builder, you see that I'm not getting those fun little tips about prompting and how to make AI work better for me. I really am just sitting here and waiting for it to build my automation. Okay, AI has done its thing. So you can see again here, I have a summary of what it built. And essentially it says why it built what it built and even gives me some next steps, just like the other one. Now I am going to fit this to screen so we can look at the whole automation. We have again that the customer replied with stop or unsubscribe, so exactly like what it did in the standard builder. Then we have the branching exactly like it did before. Again, not a bad safety net. Then we come, and I'm going to have to switch to my hand to grab and drag this. So we come to enable do not disturb on all channels. And then we have it actually used the remove from workflow feature this time. However, even though it says remove from all workflows, which this is just an action name, you can put anything you want in here. It really only set it up to remove it from the current workflow instead of all workflows. So it's closer to what I would have recommended, but still needed a little bit of tweaking. But hey, again, if you've never built these and you're not 100% sure what to do, but you have the ability to just look at it and go, does this make sense? And walk through and double check each step, this is a huge leg up in building these automations. So we're going to call this unsubscribe v2. We're going to save our changes. Now I want to just show you a couple examples of a few others that I tested previously. And what we have here is I have a proposal follow-up V1 and a proposal follow-up V2. I did exactly the same thing. I did one in the standard builder, one in the advanced builder, and then I have a birthday reminder sequence that I did a little bit differently that I want to show you. So in the proposal, and this again was actually one of the predetermined defaults that I was just giving a test. One of the options it said was, hey, after sending a proposal, do you want to wait 24 hours and send a reminder? I'm like, sure, I don't have one of those. That sounds like a great idea. I do love these prompts because they're giving you little ideas of like, oh, I didn't think I could build that using an automation. Yeah, let's do that. In this case, I took their prompt. I said, yep, let's go ahead and do that. And it built it out for me, just like I did with the do not disturb a few seconds ago. So the triggers in this case, again, are not quite accurate. If you look here, it says that the name of this trigger is proposal sent. However, if you look at the actual action, it's product access granted. These are two different things in the system. These are not the same. That I'm not real excited about. The next one, the opportunity status changed. This could be very likely part of your process, part of your sales process or onboarding process where you have a pipeline and you move people through it. And when you move people to the proposal sent stage, it triggers this automation so that they get reminders to basically look at that proposal. However, this is still not quite the trigger that I would have chosen. And I actually do, in fact, have an automation in my system for when I send contracts to new clients. So I know for a fact there is actually a different option in here, and it's neither one of these. In this case, if you look at triggers, and you pull up either documents or contracts, if you start typing that in, you're going to find documents and contracts, which are under the payments section in HighLevel. If you find documents and contracts here, and then under the filters, the way that I've set mine up, and I have used them and they did work, is that I have a template for my client contract created. So I choose template, and then I choose the template that is my client contract, which is not this one. I am in a demo account right now. And then I choose that the status is sent. That actually will trigger this automation because, again, if we look at what was the goal, this goal was after sending a proposal. So if you have a proposal template and you set it up for the status is sent, this will trigger that workflow. And I can rename this as proposal sent and then save. So this is actually the trigger that I would use. This product access granted, actually, I think that is completely wrong. And the opportunity status changed, that is possible. That could absolutely be part of your process. I think here becomes a choice. So this is where you need to actually look at the words, look at the actions that are being set up. But then for the rest of this, I would say this is actually not bad at all. We have wait 24 hours, send a follow-up. Now, the only other thing I think I would add to this workflow or create another workflow is when a document is signed. So either adding a goal to this workflow that the document has been signed so that they don't get these follow-ups if they have already signed the contract or signed off on the proposal. Where this is a proposal, maybe when you send the contract is when you don't want them to keep getting reminders that they have a proposal out there. So whatever the action is after that, after you send the proposal, you want to really think about what's going to stop this workflow. Because right now there's nothing in here stopping it. So even if you send that proposal and 30 minutes later they accept it and you send a contract, or 30 minutes later they sign it and they're a client, in 24 hours, they're still going to get this follow-up. So there's nothing in here actually stopping this. Now you have a contact reply wait down here, and then you have move them to a cold stage. That's all well and good, but again, they really need to stop this workflow if they take action, and that piece is missing from here. So this one still needs some work, but it does get you started. And now if we look at version 2, which is where I use the exact same prompt in the advanced builder, and in this one, I actually got a couple different options here. The first trigger that it gave me was nothing. It called it proposal sent, but it actually has no trigger at all. So you would have to actually select a trigger here of the contract or proposal, and it was actually a document, is what they call it here. And you can see that there is another document trigger, but this is specific to Basecamp. So we would say documents and contracts, and again, you would put in those filter options. So this one was completely not set up in this particular trigger. I'm going to cancel that for now because we already set one up on the other one. And then the second trigger option that they had here was that the customer replied before a timeout. Again, I don't understand this trigger. This one doesn't necessarily make sense to me. They replied to what? They replied to your newsletter. They replied to any email at all, really. This one isn't specific enough. This would definitely need to be built out further or just removed because it may not be correct. So needless to say, you would have to fix the trigger on this one again. The wait step, I think, is fine. The way that they have the wait step set up here is that it waits for the contact reply. It is a 7-day wait step. I actually don't use these wait steps enough. That was one thing I was realizing as I started using the AI builder, is that the AI builder actually tends to favor these types of wait steps. I tend to do branching or general waits, or do like a 7-day wait and then a branch. And I realized I actually probably could be using these a little bit more. So that is one thing I learned from the AI through this test. So it's waiting to see in 7 days if they responded. There's one sequence. If they did not respond, or if it doesn't recognize that they respond, they actually put in, did the contact reply, and that is true or not. Again, this feels like maybe a double check. Not sure if it's necessary, but considering I don't usually use these wait steps, this is actually what I normally would have put in. I would have just put in wait 7 days, check to see if they replied. And then basically this would have been they replied yes, like all of these actions would have been here. And then if they didn't reply, it would have been moved to the cold stage. So after 24 hours, and this is saying, all right, you sent them a proposal, you're waiting 7 days to see if they've replied. So if they reply in that 7 days, and that is what's happening here. So if they replied in within that 7 days, it's going to wait 24 hours more and then send a follow-up. And then 2 days after the SMS, they're going to send another email follow-up, and then 3 days after, and then create a call task. Please call to follow up on a recent, and I actually can't see what the rest of that says. So if I were sending a proposal, I'm not sure if this is the exact follow-up that I would necessarily do. Again, I think I would have somewhere in here, instead of a time delay, it would be more of a, did they sign the contract? Did they accept the proposal? Was the potential action that I was looking for them to take, and did they take it? Versus, okay, they responded within 7 days, now remind them about it. If they responded, they likely don't need to be reminded. So again, not sure this is exactly how I would use this type of workflow. I can tell you with my own processes, what I do when I send a client contract is there is a notification that goes to me if they have not viewed the contract, because that is another thing it will look for, is have they actually viewed it. So within 24 hours, if they have not viewed it, I get a message saying the person hasn't viewed it. And part of that is that maybe it landed in spam. Maybe they just haven't seen it. Maybe I need to reach out and be like, hey, just wanted to make sure you got the contract that I sent yesterday, if I hadn't heard from them some other way already, knowing that they got it and they're reviewing it. So it's just more of a notification for me. And then if a week goes by and I still haven't gotten that contract signed, I want to be notified notified again so that I can reach out to them and say, hey, this is still sitting out there. My contracts do expire, which is another contract setting. So the system will notify them one day before the expiration date as well. So that's more how I use the contract expirations. I'm probably going to do another video on that at some point and exactly how to set that up. But this AI workflow got me thinking about it and how that all works because this is based off proposals. I'm interrupting this video to make sure that there is no confusion about HighLevel or about how to work with me. If you want to try HighLevel but don't want to waste months trying to figure it out, I have two very clear options for you to consider. If you're looking to build an agency or a SaaS business, head over to marketecs.com/HighLevel. By using our affiliate link, which costs you nothing, you will get the following bonuses. Our Marketecs Engine Core Snapshot. This is all of the features that we install in every new Marketecs Engine user account, and we're giving it to you for free as an affiliate. Our onboarding guides and access to our private community. An invitation to join our weekly live office hours, where I personally will answer questions and even share tips that I've learned throughout the week. And I'm constantly learning. There is so many new features and things to learn in this industry as a whole, not to mention within the HighLevel platform. Plus, we'll give you our additional templates, checklists, and migration guide. That's option number one. Option two is if you are a business owner just looking to improve your own tech stack and you don't want to do it alone. You would like a trusted strategic partner in your corner that speaks the language, brings you time-tested automations, proven strategies, and up-to-date learning. Then go to marketexengine.com and book a consultation with me to learn more about our high-level agency, Marketecs Engine, and joining our ecosystem. I'm also currently offering discounts on one-on-one consulting to any of our affiliates and high-level users. So whether you're building an agency or building a business, pick your path and let's drive results. Now, back to your regularly scheduled programming. All right, next example that I have here is the birthday test. So another one of the predetermined little prompts that they have is to automate a birthday greeting, which is great. And I've seen people do date-based things for lots of stuff, not just birthdays. It could be an anniversary date. It could be the date that they started working with you. You've been a customer with us for a year. You've been a subscriber for a year or a community member for a year. You can build custom fields that are date fields as well and do something very similar. And this is typically what I see people setting up as birthday reminders. I don't personally use the birthday messages per se, but I do like some of the other business use cases for this. What you see is this birthday reminder trigger, and it is usually set up exactly like this. There's an actual birthday reminder in the system, so you don't have to make something new. You don't have to create this. And then you will say how many days before or after, whatever it is, you can say number of days before the day is or the month is. Like if you want to send something to everybody that has a January birthday, you would choose month is January. And then everybody maybe at the beginning of the January would say happy birthday month kind of thing. But it's pretty typical to do number of days. And you do 3 days before, basically before somebody's birthday. So that's very standard. That trigger looks excellent. And then you would send an SMS or an email or whatever it is you want to do. And it even populated a nice little text message here. And that is one thing I will say in every single one of these workflow examples, and I didn't necessarily show this in the other ones, it is actually pre-filling content, which can also save you time. So even if it isn't the exact message that you want, or maybe the cadence that you want to send them in, it is giving you that content. It is giving you the copy that you could potentially say. So this is just happy birthday message. And then it's going to wait until the actual birthday, which looking at this, I do not believe that this is set up correctly. This is waiting for the date of birth to be a specific date. And they actually put in an and here. This does not feel right. You could say is not empty, but we already know it's not empty because they got the initial SMS. So I'm going to go ahead and say that this wait step is inaccurate. If this is going out 3 days before, then I think it makes sense that you would actually just do a wait step for 3 days, and then they would get the next email on their birthday. I think that seems pretty simple and straightforward. And this is pretty common. People like to give discounts or some sort of special offer on a birthday. So they did put that language in there, and that's really great. But I do believe I would change this wait to basically just be 3 days. And you can do that by just putting in a time delay of 3 days. I don't think you need to get more complicated than that. So this right here, this workflow, this works. This is what I usually see. Now, the reason that I'm reiterating on that is because I had issues with another birthday workflow. This is the other one that I did do in the advanced builder, One of the things that I did, because I was testing these little options here, so you'll notice we have chat mode and we have point and edit. And so these are what I was playing with in this particular workflow. And if I go back to the standard builders, we have these as well. We have chat mode and point and edit. And the point and edit means that you can actually click on a specific item and then edit that specific item with AI. And you can keep iterating on these workflows with AI in here. And so that's what I was just playing around with in this. And what I found was I started out in chat mode. And if you hover over, it says chat without making any edits to your workflow. So you're basically just communicating with AI. So I started out in chat mode with that same prompt. So it didn't actually build it. I just said, here's what I want to do. And it replied with, great, yeah, you can set up a trigger and you can do this and you can do this and blah, blah, blah. And then it gave me like 3 or 4 little options. Does any of this sound like what you want to do? At the end of this workflow, it was giving me these kind of like you see in ChatGPT where it will ask you questions at the end. Would you like me to do this? Would you like me to do that? It was giving me those little prompts when I was in here. And I'm not sure if that's because I started in chat mode on this one, which is different than what I did on the other ones. Anyway, that's what I did. I put in the prompt on chat mode, it responded, and then you can see my little icon here versus the AI. I clicked on one of the little buttons it provided me that said, what are the steps to set conditions based on a customer's birthday in my workflow? So I did specifically talk to it about wanting conditions within the birthday, and that's important as I walk you through what it did here. It says, yep, here's how you can create conditions, etc. And I was like, okay. And at that point, I had turned off the chat mode. You can see how you can turn it on and off. And so I was expecting it to build something, but it didn't. And so I said, please build it. And I wasn't sure if that was going to work since I had actually been using chat mode, but it did. It built this automation and it gave me, just like it did previously, the summary of what it built and why. And so I started looking at this one a little deeper, just like I did with the other ones. I clicked first on the trigger here, and the trigger is contact changed, and it says contact updated, date of birth changed. However, the filter that it actually input here is the assigned user was changed. Has nothing to do with the birth date being updated or the contact birthday being updated. So again, not really accurate. Then it went and it checked for a birth date. Date of birth is not empty versus the next other one would be date of birth is empty. That makes perfect sense. So even if we said all contacts come in, check to see if the date of birth is empty or not. If it's not empty, take some actions. If it is empty, obviously end the workflow. You can't do anything with that information. I would have been okay with that. All right, I can understand where you're coming from there. Next, they had this calculate next birthday. This one was kind of confusing me, and I was wondering again if it was just something that I don't usually use, or if it was something new, or what it might be. So I'm looking at this going, okay, what am I missing here? And it says calculate next birthday, and then there's action types. You can format the date, and a calculate next birthday is just what they typed in. You can type in anything here. This is a date and time formatter action. And so you can format a particular date from a field. You can format a date and time from a field. You can compare dates on different things, but I just couldn't really wrap my head as I started playing around on how this would work to calculate the next birthday. And if you've used this before or you're familiar with this and I'm totally missing something, please leave a comment in the chat because I did some research on this. I looked around for other videos on this and I could not find how to use this the way that they were describing. But anyway, it had this calculate next birthday date, then it had set event start date. And again, this is just the action name that they put in, and it has custom field, calculated next birthday date as the custom field, which I also just thought was interesting. Now we're talking about adding a custom field for birth dates when we already know that we have a birthday trigger option. Then it has wait 3 days until birthday, send an SMS, wait until birthday. And this was another one that was a little confusing. So it was waiting 0 days, going to run any day of the week exactly at 12 a.m. And the current month is one. Something didn't seem quite right about this one either. That seemed way too confusing. And the fact that basically it's looking to me as though it's only going to run on the first of the month. The current day of the month is one. So that seems inaccurate as well. All right. And then it's going to send a special offer email on the first of the month I'm assuming after their birth date. That sounds like how that's going to work. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to ask AI, what exactly were you doing here? So I started with the trigger. I said, the trigger does not appear to be updating based on the date of birth changing. And then it said, you are correct. And it tells me that it's not set and that basically here's how I should adjust it. I should change it to say, remove the existing condition of assigned user. So I was correct. It should not be assigned user in that trigger. When I was looking at this going, this doesn't seem right. It should be something about the contact change with the birth date, not the assigned user. It says to add a conditional trigger for when the birth date field has changed. Unfortunately, even though birthday is a field in the system, it does not appear to be a field in the contact change trigger options. It's in the actions, not in the trigger. So this, even though AI was telling me this is what I should do, it is not an option in there, unfortunately. So moving on, my next question was, I do not understand how this calculation field works. And when I did this, I did do the point and edit. I chose the calculation field, and then I said, I do not understand how this calculation field works, or if it's needed, if we know we have a date of birth field that's populated. So it went on to tell me that the date of birth is going to basically be the original date of birth. And in some ways, this almost made sense to me because I said, okay, like if somebody was born in 1990, it's going to say that their birthday's already gone past. And so we're not going to send a birthday message. Okay, I get that. So we're looking for the next birth date in a row, but I still couldn't figure out how to make this date format actually figure that out. And the fact that I know the other automation works where it just picks the birth date made me wonder again why we needed this. And it even said here, if you only have the date of birth and want it to run every year based, you need this calculation. So this calculation is to ensure your messages are sent on the next birthday, not the original date of birth or past birthdays. I don't know how it would send a message on a past birthday, but this is what AI thinks might happen. So then there was again little options popped up as to what I might want to ask next. And one of them was, how would I calculate this field to help figure out the next birthday? This action currently appears incomplete. It tried to tell me how to put this in, but again, this was just not working for me. I was not being able to figure this out. Like I said, I went out and researched it. So I'm very curious if anybody else has researched this. I tried a couple more times to figure out how do you calculate the field for the next birth date. It still sort of reiterated the same information. I did not find a solution for that. So this feels very complicated. Several pieces of this look inaccurate to me. However, on the standard builder, when I just gave it the standard prompt, it did pretty darn good, with the exception of the wait till birthday date. Okay, so there you have it. I tested the AI. I tested it both in the standard builder and in the advanced builder. I pitted it against each other. I checked all the actions. I checked all the triggers, and I definitely found errors. This is not perfect, but I also found some cool things and I learned a couple things and I got to research a few new things that it might be able to do that I'm not even aware of. So I think this has real merit. I think it is definitely going to make workflow building faster. I think simple workflows will be easier to start with. I would probably recommend building in the standard builder versus the advanced. I think each time I tried it, it worked a little bit better in the standard builder. And then you can always convert your workflows to the advanced builder after they're built if you choose to. But that was just maybe my recommendation off of my couple of tests there. I hope you found this interesting. If you have been playing with the workflow AI at all, I would love your feedback. I would love to hear what you might have already learned from it. Go ahead and comment down below. Let me know what you think. Also, I hope you will like and share this video, and I hope you'll subscribe to the channel. Thanks.